What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new, hey, I'm Sydney. Every single Thursday I sit down and I talk about the craziest true crime in every single state, the one that stuck out to me the most. So if you like true crime, you should subscribe. Sorry I missed last week. I was working all 3 of my jobs and it was just way too much. I'm now only down to 2 jobs, but last week was just way too busy. I had absolutely no time to sit down and edit or film or anything. So here we are. I know that it's January. There's not really anything I can have for a background except snow, which today in Louisiana, it snowed for the first time in 3 years, I think. I think the last time was January 16th of 2018, so about 3 years. But yeah, just wanted to apologize since I did miss last week. I'm back this week, so we're good. I just want to know how everybody's New Year was. I haven't really talked to y'all, so comment down below also how your New Year went, okay? Mine was very good, very adult lit, if you know what I mean. Today's video is an unsolved mystery. It does involve abduction and murder of 2 children, so I do have to fair warn y'all for that if that is something that triggers y'all. If that does trigger some of you for child murder or child kidnapping and stuff like that, that is what today's video is. It is an unsolved murder that I found really interesting, so that's why I wanted to do it. I don't really have anything else that's really needed to say for the beginning of this video, so we'll just go ahead and get into it. This is Iowa's video of the Evansdale murders. So Lyric Ray Lynn Cook-Morrissey, she was born October 2nd in 2001 in Waterloo, Iowa. Her and her older sibling Dylan were very, very close. They both kind of grew up in a really bad home due to their parents both abusing drugs fairly often. So she mostly stayed with her grandma, whose name was Wilma, or she would also stay with her aunts that lived in Evansdale. So despite her home life, Lyric was a super normal and outgoing girl. She loved being outdoors. She loved One Direction. She loved going to the bowling alley and hanging out with her friends. She was very active in her church and she attended Kingsley Elementary School in Waterloo. Lyric's cousin, Elizabeth Collins, was born July 31st, 2003, almost 2 years later, and she was one of 4 children. She had an older brother named Kelly and 2 sisters, Amber and Callie. So Elizabeth grew up in Evansdale and she had a very stable home life compared to Lyric's. Her and her siblings got along, her parents got along. She was just close with their parents and her parents were not abusing drugs and stuff like that. Elizabeth attended Pointer Elementary School and this is where she was a girly girl. She loved having her hair done, her nails painted, and she was really inseparable with her dog Gus. She loved taking care of Gus and she loved to sing so much. She was constantly singing all over the house. Elizabeth also played hockey and softball and this is where she brought out her sporty tomboy side. It said that she was really rambunctious and competitive in these sports, but then also would go back home, paint her nails, redo her hair, constantly just wanted to look pretty all the time. Elizabeth and Lyric's mom were sisters, so this makes them first cousins, but they were constantly spending a lot of time with each other when it came to like family events or going over to each other's houses, to their aunt's house or cousin's house, you know, just normal family things. During the summer of 2012, the girls got really close because they would spend time over at their grandmother's house, Wilma. This is also where Lyric was living, so she would come over, play cards, ride bikes. They just hung out a lot during summer. You know, school was out. They didn't really have anything else to do. On July 13th, 2012, both of the girls were dropped off at their grandmother's house, which was in downtown Evansdale. And this is whenever they were gonna go ride bikes for the day, just hang out. And according to their grandmother, they started riding their bikes a little after noon. Between 12:30 and 1 p.m., the girls were spotted riding their bikes on Gilbert Drive, both together, which is probably about 1.5 miles away from their grandmother's house. After this, they were spotted on Lake Avenue, still together, still riding their bikes. So about an hour had gone by and both of them had never returned. Wilma started getting a little concerned and was just kind of worried why they hadn't returned home. They were starting to kind of panic over their children's safety because at this point Misty had came over, and this is whenever they were getting all the family together. We're gonna go and search for the girls just to make sure everything was okay. They were calling friends and family friends and friends of family and just everything that they could to see if maybe somebody had spotted the two girls riding their bikes so that they could feel at ease, but they didn't have any luck. Nobody had seen the girls. They didn't know what the parents were talking about. Since no one had seen the girls, they decided to hop in their cars and go and search for them. They started close around Wilma's house and then gradually got further and further, and they just weren't having any luck. So around 2:48 p.m. they contacted the Evansdale Police Department to see if maybe they could possibly help them. Since it was about 2.5 hours since the girls were last seen, a search party was started up to basically see if they could possibly find the girls, because parents were starting to panic, and since they're young children, you don't have to wait 24 hours to file a missing police report. They just wanted to locate the girls, make sure they were safe. The search party was going around to different parks and the school and just locations they believed that the girls were familiar with. Deputies from Black Hawk Sheriff's Department came to help join the Evansdale Police Department searching for the girls, and then also local firemen from different fire departments came to help also search for the girls. Around 4 p.m. at Myers Lake, on a bike trail, the girls' bikes were found, but they were nowhere around. They found Elizabeth's purse that was roughly 25 feet from where her bike was found, and there was a cell phone in it, but the cell phone wasn't meant for like phone calls or texts. It was just mostly to play games. It didn't really work. Since there were no signs of the girls around, the police decided to search every square inch around Myers Lake. Since this is where the bikes were found, this is possibly where the girls could be found. They went from downtown Evansdale near Wilma's house to where their bikes were found, so maybe they could possibly retrace the girls' steps, maybe locate them. Hundreds and hundreds of volunteers from different local cities came out to help search for the girls. They searched for days and held candlelight gatherings along with press events that basically were to raise awareness for the girls and just show support to the family and the local communities. They wanted to spread this story across the state and possibly the nation and see if maybe they could be found anywhere in the country. A few days after the girls' disappearance, there was a house that was kind of near Wilma's house that had security footage that showed at 2:11 p.m. the girls were riding past this house at this time, which kind of helped fit the police investigation's timeline. Police decided to retrace the girls' steps, like I had mentioned earlier, but to go and take security footage from different stores or maybe different houses, but they didn't really have any luck trying to find the girls. Like, they weren't on those security cameras, it was just that one house. So they decided to use like witness statements and cadaver dogs to basically like sniff out the girls, but they also didn't have any luck with that either. So the FBI eventually got involved, and they sent out some of their like specially trained divers to go and dive into Myers Lake, maybe seeing if the bodies would have possibly been found in the lake, but they also didn't have any luck as well. And this became the primary searching point since this is where the bikes were located. They believed that maybe the girls possibly drowned. They have no idea at this point. They were just desperate to find anything. At this point, they did not start in foul play or anything. They were just maybe hoping for the best before they started thinking for the worst. The police, the FBI, the volunteers, there were so many people that were putting in countless hours to possibly find these girls. They just desperately wanted to find these girls and make sure they were safe. And investigators started to lean towards asking the local sex offenders and interrogating them. They even brought some of the sex offenders in to take polygraph tests and rule some of them out to see if maybe the people who targeted young underage victims maybe possibly were the perpetrators in the disappearance of Lyric and Elizabeth. But police ended up clearing all of them because there was just no evidence that pointed to any of them, and some of them passed all of their polygraph tests. There was just no way that any of these people had done it. Also at this point, the family members and really close friends of the girls were also interviewed by police and had written statements, and they even had some of their phones and computers taken so that they could like look and possibly rule them out as well. And those family members were cleared from any wrongdoing of the disappearance of Lyric and Elizabeth. There was just nothing found that led police to believe that it was somebody that was close to the girls. So this is when police started to fear for the worst, that these girls were taken by a complete stranger, which is extremely rare. Police were starting to rule out accidental deaths and maybe it was foul play. I mean, they were kind of at this point, without a doubt, there was foul play involved. At the beginning of this investigation, police were receiving 20 tips an hour within the first few weeks, and then it slowly started to decrease, and by the end of the summer, they were only receiving about 40 tips a day, but none of these tips led police to anything. But even though the family was cleared by police, they were still getting slammed by the public. Lyric's dad, Dan Morrissey, was like, out of all of the family members, just kind of targeted the most because of his criminal past. And even at this point, he was released from police custody whenever Lyric and Elizabeth had came up missing because he just wanted to go and be with the family, so police let him do that. But he was in police custody at this time. The reason he was in police custody was because he assaulted Misty, Lyric's mom. They were trying to figure out what to do with that, but he was also allegedly charged with multiple drug felonies due to the possession of meth, dealing meth, and making meth in the home when Lyric and Dylan were home at times, which is obviously dangerous. So a year after, just jumping forward for a second, a year after Lyric and Elizabeth's disappearance in 2013, he was convicted of all these charges and sentenced to 90 years in prison. In 2014, Misty was arrested for excessive alcohol and drug abuse, but was released a year later. Now going back, for months, investigators were believing that this was just going nowhere. The tips weren't leading them to anything. The tips kind of just stopped coming in. There were no new updates to this case, so it was kind of easy to start losing hope. They didn't really know what to do. Like, they had absolutely nobody. But sadly, on Wednesday, December 5th, 2012, in the Seven Bridges Wildlife Park, there were two hunters that came across two bodies at around 12:45 p.m. This park is located about 25 miles from where the girls were last seen. Whenever they called, they explained to police that the human remains were small and apparently female. Police just kind of knew that this was not a good sign. The bodies were sent off to the state medical examiner's office, and on December 10th, 2012, the bodies were confirmed that it was Lyric and Elizabeth. The area that the bodies were found was very isolated and not many people knew about it, so it was kind of leading police to believe that whoever the perpetrator was very familiar with this park and knew that not a lot of people go there. Authorities have never officially revealed the cause of death or any other crucial information just because they didn't want any false testimonies or confessions or anything. At this point, the girls had memorials all over the town. The trail that their bikes were found at was now called the Trail of Angels, and then the park was now named Angels Park. There were thousands of dollars donated in support of the renovations of the park, along with a very big mural of the two girls that was located near a major highway. And then also July 13th was now known as Lyric and Elizabeth Day, so that the girls and, their lives were never forgotten. Their deaths inspired legislation of the state to bring back the death penalty when it came to child murders, and also when it came to Amber Alerts. There was a lot of law changes when it came to how quick alerts were sent out to the public. But it doesn't end there. This is when the investigation to find the girls stopped and the investigation to find out what happened to the girls started. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children states that the abduction of kids just randomly from a complete stranger is extremely rare. If it does happen, it's mostly over the internet, where it comes to the catfishing stories. It's just never just somebody picks up a kid on the side of the road and then kills them. Not human trafficking, just abducts and kills them. It's very rare. Two children being abducted at the same time, also in broad daylight, is extremely rare, because normally it's by a family member, but because all the family members were cleared, this had to be a stranger, which of course is rare. And to prove how rare it is, the FBI explained from the years of 1974 to 2012, there was only 15 similar cases to Lyric and Elizabeth's. In that amount of years, there was only 15 cases. So a lot of details in this case, like I said, were privated and not released to the public due to how the girls were killed, where they were killed, if there was any DNA from another perpetrator found them or near them at the site of where their bodies were found, just all of that. So because of all that information, that private information being only withheld into the police, that kind of helped with the false confession, because there were two men that had originally confessed to the murders, but because police have their own information and those two men could not give out any other information, they only had the information that all the public knew, they ruled them out and cleared them. There was no way that those two men had done that. Around 6 months after Lyric and Elizabeth's bodies were found, there was a new case that was similar in Dayton, Iowa. May 20th, 2013, there was a 15-year-old girl named Kathleen Shepard who was walking with her 12-year-old friend Desi Hughes, and they were lured in by a man to go into his vehicle where he drove them out to a pig farm after abducting them. This man had zip-tied these girls' hands and then also separated them. He left Desi in the truck and then he took Kathleen out, and don't really know where at this point, but because Desi was left alone, she escaped and ran for help. She found help, and when police arrived at the scene, the man was dead in his truck. He had committed suicide just out of fear that maybe he was going to be brought into police. Since he was found, Kathleen was not found. They had to go searching for her. A few weeks later, about 20 miles from where the pig farm was, in the Des Moines River, Kathleen's body was found. She was stabbed and beaten to death. The abductor was identified as Michael Klunder, who is a registered sex offender who had served about 20 years for abducting an older woman along with 2 3-year-old children. So Dayton is about 100 miles west of Evansdale, so police started to look into Michael Klunder and his past to see if maybe he was the possible primary suspect in the case that they could look into. And since the cases of the 2 girls being so similar, he abducted 2 girls, Lyric and Elizabeth, and then also abducted Kathleen and Desi. You know, maybe he possibly was the perpetrator. So in 2011, only a few months before Lyric and Kathleen's disappearance, he was released from prison. So he wasn't in prison at the time that the girls had disappeared, so it could have possibly been him. However, Michael had a alibi that explained that he was at his home, or at least near his home in Stratford, Iowa, the day that the girls had disappeared. And even though Michael was cleared, a lot of people still believe that he should have been the primary suspect, or at least had something to do with it, but because he did commit suicide, there is no way of knowing or questioning him. On June 24th of 2013, there was a new tip that led police into a different route of the investigation, that this could possibly help them out. By multiple witnesses, there was a large white SUV or suburban looking thing that was seen near Myers Lake the day that the girls had disappeared. Between 11:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m., which is around the time that the girls had started to get on their bikes and go, and then were also last seen at 12:30 p.m., is whenever witnesses had spotted on this day that the girls had disappeared this truck. So 2 of the witnesses had explained that they had seen this SUV parked in between the bike trail signs, and then the other witness had explained that on the east end of the lake, near the woods, is wherever this SUV was found, which was extremely close to where the bikes of the girls were found. So police believe this is the most vital information of the investigation so far. Now, pausing on that, November of 2016, there were 2 young elementary school girls that had ran home, and they had told their parents that there was a man trying to lure them into his car. 2 of the relatives, along with a neighbor, jumped in their car and sped off to try and find this car, and they caught up to him. It was a 2004 silver grayish Ford Focus, and there was a man that was in there that was a middle-aged white man, had a goatee, kind of dark hair. They started following this man for a really long time, and he started to yell out the window that he was an undercover police car and that they're like ruining his investigation and he will arrest them. The family knew that this was not at all what he was talking about, and so they had already called police, and police eventually stopped him and arrested him. This man that was arrested was 58-year-old Jeff Altmayer. He was also from Iowa. He was arrested and charged with trying to entice children, and apparently between May and December of 2016, he had tried and done this with multiple girls and even succeeded sometimes. Jeff Altmayer had sexually assaulted 2 of his victims and then dropped them off a few blocks from where he had picked them up. He had done this with like dozens of girls. So Jeff was sentenced to life in prison because of these charges, and police were kind of like leaning towards this guy because nobody just starts committing crimes at age 58. So they were thinking maybe maybe this was the man that had hurt Lyric and Elizabeth, because he had probably gotten away with it and he just got caught with this one. Police investigated Jeff and kind of had him as a person of interest, but there was no evidence that led police to believe that Jeff had done these to the girls, and so he was cleared as well. There was just no evidence that linked Jeff to the disappearance of the girls. In May of 2018, 36-year-old Teresa Gerlman and her son Henry were walking about to cross a train track where they tragically lost their lives in Belle Plaine, Iowa. Police believed that this was a very tragic accident until they got CCTV footage basically explaining that this was a murder-suicide. This footage showed Teresa putting herself on the train tracks and then grabbing her son at the last second to be hit by the train, which killed them instantly. Interviews with Teresa's family and friends, along with her therapist, had explained that she struggled really bad with mental health issues. The therapist had told police that Teresa had told her one time that because of all the medication she was on, she felt like standing in front of a train. Teresa had also explained to her therapist that she had knowledge of a double murder that happened in Evansdale, which obviously the therapist came to believe that this was the Evansdale murders of Lyric and Elizabeth. There was a 6-page letter that was found in a box in Teresa's home that were written by 2 men that said they were responsible for killing Lyric and Elizabeth. Teresa said that she used to hang out with these guys all the time and they had admitted to her that they had done this too. When police obtained a search warrant to search Teresa's home is when they found this 6-page letter, along with 4 cell phone, 2 notebooks, and 2 sealed envelopes that were written by Henry, where he had labeled them to Phaedra from Henry and to Jeremiah from Henry. And it's not specified with this information if this links anything from Teresa's death or any knowledge of these people to the deaths of Lyric and Elizabeth. It doesn't, I don't understand, and I looked everywhere, I don't understand. The Jeremiah and Phaedra, these 2 men could possibly be involved and nothing was done about this. It's still unsolved. I don't know, but it's not specified if they are or not. So there are some speculations when it comes to the Evansdale murders that this murder is possibly linked to the 2017 Delphi murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. This is also known as the Snapchat murders. So the Delphi murders is basically the Snapchat murders. Kendall Rae has a really good video about this where she actually interviews one of the victim's sisters. So I'm gonna link that video down below because it's really good and you should go watch it. There are a lot of similarities when it comes to both of these Evansdale and the Delphi murders. Police also kind of ruled this out. They said that the perpetrator for Evansdale is local and possibly did not kill in Delphi. So they kind of ruled that out, said that there was no relation when it comes to those murders. But in my opinion, if you read and watch the Delphi murders, it's not crazy. It's not crazy to think about it. Possibly it could be the same person. So the FBI did release a potential profile of the offender of the Evansdale murders. The investigation of Lyric Cook and Elizabeth Collins is still an active and open investigation. Police are still interviewing people, still interviewing sex offenders. There's a lot going on just to maybe find justice for these girls. There's also a $170,000 reward if there is any information that you can bring to the arrest and prosecution of whoever did this to these girls. Either if it's a person, if it's multiple people that are involved, you will get a $170,000 reward. In October of 2020, Lyric would be celebrating her 19th birthday, possibly in college or starting a lifelong career, and Elizabeth would be celebrating her 17th birthday and ending her high school career. But due to this disgusting human being that ended these girls' lives and has also not been convicted or anything, they sadly cannot do that. So my heart goes out to them and their families. Since this unknown killer has still yet to be found, I will link down some numbers in my description box that you could possibly contact if you have any information regarding what possibly could have happened to these girls. These girls need some justice, and I know that their family wants it as well. I know that a lot of you like closure when it comes to stories. I know that I do. Sadly, I can't give that to y'all today. I can't give you closure on what happened to these girls, and this case is still unsolved, and I don't know, my heart goes out to these girls and these families. Personally, I have no idea who could have done it, but it sucks that this person is still walking around. I want them to spend some jail time because the girls were innocent. They literally were riding on their bike. Like, these girls were just riding their bike. Like, that's all they were doing. People are so sick. Like, it's so scary. I'm terrified to have children of my own one day. Like, I'm terrified. There's so many bad people in this world and bad shit going on all the time. So that I don't ramble any longer, let me know down below if any of the people who could have possibly been involved, like Jeremiah or Phaedra, which I believe maybe possibly, if these people were involved or who you just believe it was, or if you actually have no clue at all. Just let me know about down below. I love to hear you guys' feedback on this. If you like this video, make sure you comment down below what you believe on this video, and like and subscribe and tell your friends. And yeah, that's really it. I love and appreciate y'all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next Thursday. Bye!